All right, so I was gonna do a one shot in 5th edition, and I said that I was going to record myself prepping for it. Um, I didn't actually do that because I just kind of started doing it, and then I just kind of got in a little groove, so I just kind of did it all and finished it. But so what I thought that I'd do instead of like recording myself while I was sort of editing it and prepping for it was just kind of show what I did, what I ended up doing, and how it all worked out. So what I did was I got the Dungeon Master's Guide here, and I our normal game couldn't happen yesterday because some of the players couldn't make it. So we had two players, and so what I decided, because most of them haven't actually tried out the 2024 fifth edition yet. Um, we had two players, and I said, why don't we run a little one shot, and I'll make a character. I'll make some characters for you, and we'll run a little one shot and try out the 2024 fifth edition, and you can see what it feels like. So what I decided to do was to use the sample adventure that they have here. Um, that would be the level 1 adventure, which is the Fouled Stream, which is right. Oops, Greyhawk. Greyhawk is falling. The Fouled Stream, which is right there. So the first thing that I did was I read through the adventure to sort of make sure that I knew what it was all about, and I had I read through it before when I first took a look at this book, and it's only half a page or so, so it's not super in depth. But basically, the Fouled Stream, and people have talked about this before, so you might already know about it. But the Fouled Stream, adventure for level 1 characters. Situation: an alien fungus in a cave is polluting the stream that flows past the village of High Eyrie. The fungus has spawned vile creatures in and around the cave. Hook: the folk of High Eyrie are noticing fungal growths on the riverbanks and a layer of scum on the water. The characters might live in the village, or a contact in the free city of Greyhawk might ask them to investigate. And then they have a list of encounters. It says, the first fork. A mile upstream from the village, a stream flows into the river from a little wood on the river's south side. Characters can tell that this stream is the source of the pollution. Then it has the journey upstream. Borogrove, a kindly treant, keeps watch over the wood and meets the characters as they follow the polluted stream. He knows the source of the corruption is inside a cave that the stream spills out of. He gives the characters a magic acorn. If swallowed, the acorn conveys the benefits of a potion of healing and the lesser restoration spell. Twig blights. Just outside the cave, the characters encounter 6 twig blights. Corrupted cave. Then it says, use the Underdark Warrens map and Appendix B for the corrupted cave. Ignore the secret door and the inner chambers behind it. Close off the tunnels leading off of the map to the south, east, and north. The characters enter the cave in the southwest, following the stream. The cave's main features and inhabitants are as follows. Entrance. A shrieker fungus just inside the cave entrance alerts the inhabitants to the character's arrival. On watch near the entrance and quick to respond to the shrieker's cry are 4 bullywug warriors who have fungal growths on them. Berserk bear. In a side cave to the southeast is a brown bear that drank from the stream. It's upset because the water made it ill. If the characters can make it eat Borogrove's acorn or otherwise rid it of the poison condition, the bear recovers immediately and leaves them alone. Ooze's lair. At the north end of the stream are a psychic gray ooze and 6 sturges. After defeating these creatures, the characters can destroy the brain-like fungus in the water, which is the source of the corruption. If they do, each character earns a bonus 100 XP. Journey home. As they leave the wood, the characters encounter Borogrove again. If they used his acorn, he gives them another one. If they purified the source of the stream, he gives them a staff of flowers in gratitude. So, pretty simple adventure. It's pretty linear. Not a lot of spots for various twists or turns or anything. It kind of goes from one scene to the next, which is fine for a kind of more of a beginner adventure. It's fine for a more immediate. It's a fine. Adventures don't have to be twisting and turning all the time. They can be linear if you want them to be, just not all the time. Sometimes they can be. You always want to have a nice mix between linear adventures and branching adventures. Variety is the spice of life. Anyway, so all this stuff is kind of good. So what I just needed to make sure that I did as I was prepping for this one-shot is I had two main things that I needed to do. The first thing that I needed to do was, because this is designed for 4 characters, I had to retool all the encounters for 2 characters. And then once I did that, I needed to write out some... I didn't want to have this all the time. So I rewrote out the adventure in a more different format on my computer so that I could have it, and I filled out some more notes and some more details, which I will show you. So let's see, let's put this here. Okay, so we'll take a look at this first. This was what I did for the monsters. And I used... So the one thing that I did a couple of things. The first thing that I did was I took a look at all the monsters that they wanted me to use. I lowered the number of them, and I also lowered some of their damage and hit points and things. For example, these twig blights, there were originally supposed to be 6 of them, so I instead put 3 of them, and the twig blight's damage is normally it was normally 1d4 plus 2, and I just changed it to 1d4 plus 1 so that they do just a little bit less damage. Same thing with the Bullywug Warriors. Let's see, page 64 they're on. So the Bullywug Warriors, you can see I changed their AC to 13 and their damage to 1d6 plus 2. Normally, Bullywug Warriors, their AC is 15, and their damage is 1d8 plus 2 and 1d4 poison damage, which is a lot. That's a lot of damage. That's one thing that I have noticed about the monsters in the monster manual, in the 2024 version, is that sometimes they do tend to do more damage than they probably should. So it might behoove you to take a look at that when you're looking at monsters, and to determine if you think they're doing the right amount of damage. How do you know if they're doing the right amount of damage? Well, what I use is this, The Forge of Foes, by Mike Shea of Sly Flourish and others, the Lazy DM's Forge of Foes. They have a big table in here of monster statistics by challenge rating. You can see that there. And so what I do is I just look at whatever the challenge rating of the monster is, and compare it to the things here, and decide if I want to adjust any of it as I want. So like the Bullywug Warriors, for example, their challenge rating 1/4. In the book, they have 11 hit points, and the hit points in the Forge of Foes are average 13, between 10 and 16, so 11 fits in there pretty well. The damage is 6 plus 2, average damage, that would be 8. But the average damage per round of a 1/4 in the Forge of Foes is 5. So 8 is higher than 5. So I just wanted to lower it. So I lowered it to 26 plus 2, which the average of that would be 5, so that's directly in line with the chart in here. And when you're looking at challenge rating, what I've found is that the damage output is, the hit points and the damage output are the most important parts of how you determine what challenge rating a creature is. But the damage is even more important than the hit points. You can kind of be a little bit more, the hit points have a little bit more opportunity for wiggle room. You can kind of lower them or you can raise them and it won't change it too much, but the damage output is what you really want to be careful with. You kind of don't want to go, if you go too high, then you're kind of getting into a higher challenge rating, into that kind of area. So you want to be a little bit careful with that. So I just looked through all the monsters here and made sure that their damage and hit points was what I wanted. So the Blue Web Warrior, and so like the AC didn't really matter. I just lowered it because I thought 15 was a little high, so I just made it 13. And then they had the Berserk Brown Bear, which we read about. Now brown bears are challenge rating 1, and I knew that just a normal brown bear was too strong for what I was dealing with. So I just used the statistics table in the Forge of Foes to lower the brown bear from challenge rating 1 to challenge rating 1/2. So we've got 17 hit points, AC 12, and 2 claw attacks at +4, 1d4 plus 2 damage, and they each each attack gives the target the prone condition, which is what the claw does normally. Normally the brown bear has also a bite attack, but I just left that out. And I also made a little note here. You can see that both attacks have disadvantage, and I did that because the bear is sick. It drank the poison water, so it's sick, and so its attacks have disadvantage. And then the final fight over there is with the Psychic Gray Ooze, which, again, the Psychic Gray Ooze is also challenge rating 1. So I wanted to make it challenge rating 1/2 so that it would be a little less deadly for my 2-person party. So the hit points are actually not different than what they are normally, and the reason I did that was because it was a boss. So generally when I do a boss, what I do is I take whatever hit points you would normally have for that challenge rating, and I basically multiply it by 1.5. So like if you had like 20 hit points, for if like the normal amount of hit points for the challenge rating would be 20, then if I was making a boss, I would give it 30 hit points, or around there. And 37 is what the ooze has in the book. I don't think it's quite 1.5, but it was close enough that I just went with it. And AC, I gave it AC. The ooze in the book has an AC of 9. I just rose it up to 1 to AC 10 just for the hell of it. And as well as the pseudopod, I lowered the damage on its attack, as well as the psychic crush, and I also lowered the damage on the mind corrosion reaction that it's got. So I just use the Forge of Foes. I use the statistics by challenge rating table, and I determined what challenge rating I wanted the monsters to be, and I just filled out the stats as the table told me. And that's very simple to do, and it doesn't really it's not that much work to do. So once I did that, you can see I rewrote a lot of the stuff that was in the book. I just kind of rewrote it over here, and I just use Word to prep for games. A lot of people use more fancier things. I just use a Word document. because it's easier. The way I wrote these things here, though, is a little bit different than kind of how I normally do. I'm trying something a little bit different. It's kind of I mentioned, Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, the Lazy Dungeon Master. I've been looking more into some of his stuff more recently, and I didn't use the 8 steps as he has them, the 8 lazy steps for the Lazy Dungeon Master, but I kind of was inspired by some of it and put some of it into here. So as you see, I've got the strong start here, which is one of his steps. And the strong start just ensures that you have a scene that you start the game on that kind of draws the players in sort of immediately, so that they're immediately drawn into it doesn't have to be a fight, but it just has to be something that happens that draws them into the world. And so the strong start that I did, I said, while traveling near the village, the characters stop to drink from the river, only to find the water brackish and foul with scum. They also notice fungal growths on the riverbed. So just kind of a thing to draw them in. When you start playing, everyone's kind of chatting and catching up, and so you just kind of need something to sort of draw the curtain back and say, here we are. Now we're in this imaginary world, and here we go. And so this is what I did to do that. One of the things that I made sure to add as I was dealing with this is the idea of fungal growths, because they mentioned that some of the monsters have fungal growths on them, and the source of the corruption is this sort of alien fungus kind of thing. So I wanted to make sure that those little fungal growths were all over the place, because the adventure doesn't really mention them. So I put them on the shores of the river. I put them basically on every monster that they encountered. And just, to kind of hammer home the fact that there is some kind of weird fungal growth was responsible for this, and if they found the source of that, the idea was that they would kind of figure out by seeing all these fungal growths. If they found the source of the fungal growth, then they would find the source of the corruption, and if they could get rid of that, then that would be what would help them get rid of the corruption. You see what I have here at the start, before the notes actually start, is I actually copied over the story from the Dungeon Master's Guide, where it says an alien fungus in the cave is polluting the stream, and it spawned vile creatures. And this was actually something that I haven't necessarily done before, but I wanted to try it out for my notes, is to before all the notes start, is I just kind of wanted to write out, a few brief sentences about the main idea of the adventure, what's going on, and why it's happening. And then all the notes after that are just sort of little bits of information, to help, just little bits of information to help sort of I can't think of the word, just help make everything more robust, and to kind of help not pad out everything, but help make everything. I can't think of the fucking word, but I'll kind of, but so the idea is that you have this thing here at the front, at the top of your notes, so that you always know what the main goal of the adventure is, and that everything you write after that is sort of tied up to this main goal. And so hopefully the idea with that is that you don't have to spend a lot of time in your notes kind of trying to tie everything back together. You know what the goal is because you have it written up there. And so everything after that is in service to that goal. So as you're looking through your notes, you can kind of put it together in your brain. So the way I have my notes set up here, so like this section here, I have it's called the pollution, right? And then everything in this section talks about the pollution of the stream. So, I say, like, the river has been polluted for a few days now. Villagers have gone to investigate, but they encountered strange monsters along the river, so they turned back. The monsters haven't come to the village, but it's probably only a matter of time. Anyone who drinks from the polluted water becomes ill. Some villagers, especially children, drank from the water before the corruption was known, and they suffered vomiting and diarrhea, dysentery. Clean water helps the recovery process, but they have to travel to Greyhawk and purchase it, which takes time. About half the village is sick from the polluted water. So none of this, all of this stuff here is kind of good information that the players can learn while they're in the village. They don't necessarily have to learn it while they're in the village, right? I just put all this information under the pollution because this is all information pertaining to the pollution. If they talk to people in the village, they can learn this information from them. Or if they talk to other people about something else, then they might be able to drop it. Just it's kind of like the secrets and clues section from the Lazy Dungeon Master, but I group them into sections based on what they're about, right? So these are all the sort of secrets about the pollution. So I just put them all under pollution, under the pollution section. And then we have some bits about the reward. There was no monetary reward in the adventure, so I just said the mayor, gives them 15 gold pieces. He offers 15 gold pieces to do it. And then he also tells them about... Now, okay, so this is one thing that I changed. The adventure mentioned that there was a treant who the characters run into named Borogrove, who tells them about the source of corruption in the cave. I changed that to there was this kind of old weird hermit who kind of lives in a hut upstream named Archibald Borogrove. I took the Borogrove name from the adventure and just came up with Archibald because it was kind of a weird old sounding name. And the reason I did that was for two reasons. One, I kind of thought that the idea of a treant was kind of just a little too weird, a little too whimsical. In my games, I like to keep things a little more grounded. So I decided to just have a guy and not a treant. Secondly, also because, if the guy was a treant, the way it's written in the book, you kind of go up to the treant, and this treant is like this, guardian of the forest or whatever. And he's like, oh, the river is corrupted in there. You should go in there and solve it. And it's like, dude, you're a treant. Why don't you fucking do it, right? So, I kind of felt like there needed to be some reason why the characters themselves have to do this. So, and if the guy that they get the mission from was a treant, then, it doesn't really make sense why he wouldn't just go do it. So the guy who tells them about the corruption is this kind of weird old guy, and he can't really do it because he's not an adventurer or a fighter or anything like that. So that was why I changed it to this old guy. And then I have some information about the old guy. See about his hut, and I have a little description of his hut, a low squat building made of timber and clay. I also moved the twig blights because the adventure says the twig blights are just outside the cave. I moved them to here. They're kind of outside the hut, and they're sort of pounding on the doors and the walls, trying to get inside. So the party fights the twig blights out here, and I say that the branches that make up the twig blights are wet and have fungal growths all along the wood, just keeping the fungal growths in there. And then once they fight the twig blights, they talk to Archibald, and if the player, and basically what I have here is if the players haven't already figured out the connection between the fungus and the corruption, he kind of tells that to them here. And tells them, if they can find, the source of this fungus, then they can probably, solve the corruption. And then he gives them the magic acorn. That's from the adventure. Although I do, I have a nod to the treant where it says, he says the magic acorn comes from a treant. And it does the same thing. And then, just here, just so I can remember to talk about the stream, that is coming from the cave. It joins the river, and the stream is what's corrupted, so they follow the stream, and then they get to the cave. And then this is pretty much the same as it was in the book. We have the Shrieker fungus, and then the Bullywug warriors. And then to the right, there's the bear den. It's in pain, and it's sick. And it attacks you in a frenzy, but if you can somehow calm it, or give it the acorn or something, then it won't attack you anymore. And then the ooze. The one thing, another change that I made was in the adventure. It says that there's the weird brain fungus is in the pond that the stream sort of is coming out of. I changed that to where there's this 30-foot waterfall that is actually feeding the pond that then goes into the stream. And I said that the sort of brain-like fungus is actually at the highest point of the waterfall, like 30 feet above the ground. And the reason I did that was just because I wanted, just some kind of extra little complication as the players were trying to deal with the fungus. So they couldn't just go into the water to get it. They had to somehow like climb up or like knock it down or do something to get it. Just a little extra complication. And then I have the the acorn and the staff of flowers and the reward. So you can kind of see what I did here. The main thing that I changed here was I just kind of added a little bit of extra information that the players might ask about or that I could tell them. And I just kind of wrote it all out here in my own way so that I could just look at it. I could look at this while I was running the adventure and not have to, look through the book. And this is a little bit more, it's a little bit more written out. The book has it a little bit in a little bit more sparse language. And I wrote it out a little bit more completely and included a few descriptions because I like to use more descriptions while I am DMing so that it gets more visual language in there, so it's a little bit more interesting. The other thing that's worth noting, I suppose, is once I did all that, then I did the map. So I have here this is the map from the book, the Underdark Warren map. And so basically what the book said to do is to use this map and to cut off the secret door and to cut out the the entrances and exits from the north, the south, and the east. So the secret door is here, right? This is the secret door. So they want you to cut this out, and they don't want you to have this, this, or this. So basically they just want you to have sort of this sort of inner section. So you have the river here, and the bear was off to the right, so the bear is somewhere like around here. And then they have a pond here, but it doesn't really connect to the stream, so I'm not sure if they wanted this section to be the stream where the brain was, or if they just wanted it to be over here. If they just wanted it to be over here, that's a little weird because the players could just like walk up here without even having to go over here. So, that was a little weird. So what I did was I drew my own map. First, I drew it here. I have this notebook of just normal graph paper that when I draw maps, I like to start here so that I can have an idea of what I'm doing. So we have basically, I start with this. You see this? Kind of. Can't really see it, but I basically have I drew a little, my interpretation of what they were trying to do here. But I can show you, on Roll20, this was the map that I drew for the hut, right? Just very simply, you have the stream here, and the hut here, and this is the Archibald Bargrove guy. But this is the map for the corrupted cave, and there's some fog of war here, so I'll actually just clear that so that you can see it a little bit easier. So basically, you can see the map that I drew is the entrance is here, and this is where the Shrieker fungus and the bullywugs were. And you can follow the stream up here. It kind of turns up here, and then there's the waterfall, and then there's the ooze was in the water. Alternatively, if you turn right, you would find then the bear's den. And then once you deal with the bear, there's also this little side thing here that you can wind around that leads to this place. Generally speaking, it's kind of a good idea when you're doing dungeons to have branching paths and alternate paths that the players can take. You can have a more linear dungeon that just goes from room to room to room. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. just like I said before, it's good occasionally to have dungeons where they're not so linear, where you can go in other ways. You know, it's kind of a good idea to use a mix of both kind of things. So this one is so in this one, the players have a choice. They can go up here. They have a choice. They can either go to the right, and if they go to the right, they have to deal with the bear, or they can keep going straight, and if they keep going straight, then they just find the final encounter. And then once they deal with the final encounter, they could conceivably, go back down this way, and then they'd still have to deal with the bear. Because just because they cleared the river doesn't mean the bear's not sick. The bear's still sick. And then the bear is actually another interesting choice that they have, because the bear is sick and sort of frenzied, and once they encounter the bear, they have a choice. How do they want to deal with it, right? They can attack the bear and kill the bear. That's a choice. Or they can try to, calm the bear and cure the bear. That's another choice. They could also try to flee. If they find the bear, they could say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with the bear," and they could just run away. And the bear probably wouldn't chase them because it's too sick and sad, right? And then dealing with the fungal growth here on top of the waterfall is another interesting opportunity for choice, because then the players get to decide, how they want to deal with that. Do they want to climb up? Do they want to knock it down? Like the way that my players dealt with it when they ran through it was they were thinking about trying to climb up, but I was like, if you try to climb up under the waterfall, you're going to have disadvantage on the checks. You could climb up, around the side of the waterfall, but you still have to try to, get over to it. So one of the characters was a cleric, and so she was just like, "Well, I cast Sacred Flame on the brain thing," and I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense. You cast and it kind of like burns up in the divine magic, and it disappears." And so that was how they dealt with it. So they had a lot of choices for how to deal. They had a lot of options for how to deal with it, and so they chose one. So it's a good idea to have choices. That's always good. So yeah, that was how I dealt with that adventure. It took me about maybe an hour and a half to sort of plot that all out. I started with retooling all the encounters, and then I wrote out all my own personal notes, and then once that was done, then I sort of drew out the maps. So all in all, that took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It was a lot. It was simpler because I was working off of a guide. I had the pre-written adventure already. If I had to come up with it on my own, it might have taken longer. But that was basically how I dealt with it, and some of the thoughts that I had on why I made the changes that I made. Basically, any changes that I made were either to make it less deadly, because I didn't have as many players, so I didn't want the encounters to be as intense. So I wanted to make it less deadly. I wanted to give more of context as to what was going on, and give more opportunities for the players to kind of figure out what was going on, and think of some ways to deal with it, which is why I included all the stuff about the fungus. I wanted to also include some more opportunities for sort of complications and for choices, and that's kind of why I included the like the thing on the waterfall, right? It offers more of a choice, and that was why I made sure to sort of design the bear section as being optional, because it ensures that the players have a choice. Do they want to deal with this problem, or do they want to avoid it and go do the other thing? So yeah, there we go. And that was how I dealt with the corrupted stream, the fouled stream adventure from the Dungeon Master's Guide. And there you go. I will leave now. Goodbye.